We are on chapter 4 of Clementine and the Family Meeting. And we have been talking about the science-y superhero that Waylon is going to be. And Clementine had asked him, like what? What is he going to be? Like molecular transmogrification. I started to get interested. Those were sciencey words. All right. What does that mean? Transmogrific, whatever. It means I can walk through walls, Waylon said, or I'm starting to. I'm starting to be able to transmogrify the molecules of me through the molecules of the wall. I got really excited. This was going to be way better than rats in a maze. It was even better than dinosaur guts. You can really do that? Sure, watch. Waylon got up and walked up next to the Nutrition Rocks poster. He pressed himself against a cylinder block wall so hard I thought his whole front would be one giant bruise. See, he asked through his smushed up mouth. I'm halfway through. I was just about to laugh at his joke about squashing himself into the wall when he pulled away and turned to face me. His face was glowing, and I realized something. He believed it. He really believed he was transmogrifying his Waylon molecules through the cafeteria wall. I said, but it has to be a project about testing factors with control subjects, I think. That's where you come in, Waylon said. You could be the control subject. Like rats 1 through 10. You'll be the one who can't transmogrify, who proves that I can. Waylon, I don't think this is going to work, I said. Why not? Waylon sat down again and squint-eyed me. Can you transmogrify too? Maybe we should use one of my other powers. Just then the meanest lunch lady, the one who always says no more chocolate milk, came out and glared at my class, which meant they were making the really big mistake of laughing when they were supposed to be eating. I suddenly worried about 18. I hoped he wouldn't wander into the lunchroom and think it was a good place to set up his new home. I never liked the story of the 3 blind mice with all those carved knives. When I turned back to Waylon, he was still going on about his superpowers, and that made me feel really lonely. The way I did when Margaret was blabbering about makeup. It felt like now Waylon was getting on an airplane too, going somewhere I couldn't go. I finished my lunch without talking anymore, and even the applesauce tasted sour. Here's the lunch lady. Waylon followed me out at recess and started in again. Apparently, one of his superpowers wasn't being able to figure out when people didn't want to talk to him. Or maybe our project could be about my selective invisibility, he said. Invisibility? I asked, getting a little bit interested again. Waylon said. That's in development too. Haven't you ever noticed me getting invisible? Sometimes it happens in gym class. I don't like gym class. You get invisible in gym class? Well, not yet, Waylon said. I get kind of cloudy. You never noticed that. No, sorry. How about we do something about dinosaurs? You can't get more sciencey than dinosaurs. No, my superpowers are better. I'll show you my invisibility. Waylon looked around to make sure nobody was watching us. Then he rolled up his coat sleeve and his shirt sleeve and stuck out his arm. He squeezed his eyes shut and shook a little. There, he said. See? See what? My arm. See how it's a little bit invisible? How you can sort of see through it? I see that you're shivering, I said. It's freezing out. No, I'm getting invisible. Can't you see that? I looked at Waylon's face to see if he was kidding. He wasn't kidding. I don't know, maybe a little. I have to go in now, I said, because suddenly I did. I ran across the playground and barged into our classroom, even though the rule is no coming back inside unless it's an emergency. And there goes Clementine running in. And this is chapter 5. It's an emergency, I said to Mr. DeMaz, who was correcting papers at his desk. It's unfair. Our rat got lost, and it's unfair I have to do a whole new report, and it's unfair I have to have Waylon for a partner. Mr. DeMaz leaned back in his chair. I'm hearing the word unfair a lot, Clementine. That's because the whole thing is so unfair, I said. You might as well call it the Science Unfair Project. What exactly is so unfair? And here is Mr. DeMaz and Clementine going to him with her complaints. Everything. Everything? I nodded. Everything? Well, what is the biggest unfair thing about it? That nobody asked us. They just decided. We've talked about this. It's the teacher's job to teach and the student's job to learn. Both of you have to decide about how best to do that. But what if we don't need another brother or a sister? What if our family is perfect the way we are? I clapped my hands over my mouth when I realized what I had said. But Mr. DeMaz didn't seem surprised that we weren't talking about science fairs anymore. He just looked at me for a long while, and then he said, Oh. Right, I said. Oh, my parents should have asked my brother and me. Well, I think that's not how it usually goes. Parents decide these things. But they didn't tell us. Mr. DeMaz nodded. Parents often don't. Not for a while. They choose their timing. I suddenly felt like I was going to cry if I said one more word, so I made my mouth into a ruler line. Mr. DeMaz tipped his head. He looked as if he was trying to decide something. You know, Clementine, he said after a while, this is something we have in common. I was so surprised I forgot about not talking. Really? Your parents are having another baby too? He laughed. No. Well, at least I don't think so. No, I'm sure they're not. What I meant was that my wife and I are expecting a baby in a few months. What? Some of my Clementine sections were so excited. Mr. DeMaz was always bringing things in from home. His collection of Hawaiian shirts, his baseball cards. Zippy and Bump, the hamsters, were usually his. Maybe he'd bring his baby in too and pass it around. But some of my sections were mad too. How come you didn't tell us? I asked. Well, like I said, when to tell and who to tell, it's a private decision for the parents. But that's not fair. You know stuff about us. My teacher pointed to a sign we'd put up at the beginning of school. Fair doesn't mean everyone gets the same thing. Fair means everyone gets what they need. Do you remember how that works? He asked. I know, I said. It means I get to stand up and wiggle around if I want to. It means Kyla gets to drink some orange juice when it's not even snack time. That's exactly right. And knowing what's going on in your lives helps me teach you. Well, don't you think it would help us to learn if we knew what was going on in your life? Mr. DeMaz was quiet for a minute as he thought about it. You know, Clementine, he said at last, you just might have a point. I'm going to have to think about it, though. For now, I'd appreciate it if you kept what I told you. He made his fingers into the letter P, which is our secret symbol. Got it, I said. Private. Me too. I'd appreciate it if you kept what I told you about my family. I made the secret signal too. Private. Mr. Motts shook my hand, and then I went back out to recess. I was surprised I didn't have to duck when I went through the door because I was sure I had grown about 3 feet taller.